Hi, welcome to My Outdoors. My name's Davey Wright. Today we are at the Outdoor Trade Show and I have been talking to the guys from Paramo. They recently, and you've seen on the news on My Outdoors, went through an employee trust scheme, and today we're going to talk to Richard Pyne about that. So just to get a bit of more understanding of it, because there's a lot more to it I think than most people realise, and then we're going to talk about how Paramo are going to kind of move forward. So Richard, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
No, not at all. It's been obviously we met up yesterday and we were chatting on the stand, and I think for me it was certainly valuable to hear the message that Paramo were putting out, and as much as we heard about the employee and forgive the semantics because I know there's a specific word for it, but wording for it, but I mean, it's a great thing that Nick did for the business. But I would like to talk a bit more about that. But I think first off, maybe introduce yourself, what you're doing now,
a little bit of where we've come from,
where you've come from, who you are, and how you've got where you are in Paramo, and where we are from there.
Sure. So yes, as you say, Richard Pyne. So I'm the current custodian of the Paramo directional clothing brand, which means I suppose I have the honour of leading quite a dedicated group of people selling outdoor kit to outdoor people. I've been with Paramo for getting on 10 years now. Started working in one of our village shops actually, and have sort of moved my way up through the company to where I am. It was a 1 day a week job to start with, and now I seem to be running the thing. So it shows the progression that we offer actually quite a lot of people within the group. So we're sister company to Nickwax, and there's actually a lot of managers and senior staff who have come right up through the company, and we've got a lot of people working for the business who have been around for some time. And obviously we'll talk about the EOT bit in later on in this interview, but I think it sort of highlights one of the reasons why employee ownership things are a good way of owners handing over, because if you bring in external people, they come with their own views and maybe don't quite have the knowledge of how companies work, what's important, most of all the ethos and the values, I suppose, which drive these companies. And for Paramo, that is hugely important, and I think those values actually keep a lot of us working here. And that's largely down to the relationship we've got with our manufacturing plant over in Colombia, which is the Miquelina, Creaciones Miquelina. And that goes back 30 years, when Nick was originally testing his sort of waterproof concepts. He ended up meeting a nun with a sewing machine and a small factory back then. And the two of them got talking, and essentially she'd set up this foundation to take at-risk women off the streets of Bogota. There was huge civil war going on. Drug cartels in Colombia led to huge amounts of displacement across the country, and the women and the children were often those hit worse. And Madre Esther had the sort of vision and the intelligence, I suppose, to go, well, actually, if I can train these women, if I can educate these women, they will be able to make a life for themselves. And so when Nick came to her, I went over there actually a few months ago and was talking to her about the early days. And she said, honestly, she wasn't sure whether she was going to be able to do this, but she sort of said yes to him anyway, as you do. And from year one, they proved that they could make these garments, and it's grown from that.
I mean, I wonder if there's a lot of Paramo users out there that realise that. I don't think that's as widely known fact in the outdoor industry, in my opinion. And I could be wrong. There may be some people come back to me now and go, no, we all knew that, don't be silly. But I think that story is a great story. It's not a story. It's
it is fact. Yes.
The foresight of Nick to look at that and choose that way of manufacture.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes we're companies make product, right? And so therefore the people that make that product are people. And if you can have a positive impact on those people, you've got a vaguely sustainable business there, because you're actually empowering people, you're having a tangible impact on them. And that's very much at the heart of Paramo. And over 30 years, the sale of Paramo garments has got 10,000 women through the foundation. It is very linked. If Paramo succeeds, we can help more women. If Paramo fails, we can't help as many. But actually, we made a decision, or Nick made a decision very early on in Paramo's history, not to talk about Miquelina in such a way, because in the late 90s he was building the brand, and I think ethical manufacturing wasn't viewed in the same way it is today. And to build the brand, he felt the need to build the brand on the performance, on the durability, on the longevity. So that's what was spoken about. And it wasn't until much later, in fact, that we really started talking about Miquelina at all. And they've done a huge amount as well. And back in 2017, they became World Fair Trade Organization members, and that membership sort of guarantees that the companies who are partners of that are always putting people and planet first in everything they do.
And imagine even that, taking on or asking the sister to do that is it was a risk, I would imagine. I don't know. It feels like it would have been a risk back then, because sounded like she was taking a risk and accepting it. Yep. So for Nick to build his business on that was a bit of a risk, I would imagine.
Absolutely, yeah. And one of the things that Nick actually drove Madre Esther to do was get ISO accreditation, so ISO 9001 for quality standards, which today we all take for granted. But, back then in a factory like that, it was unheard of. So at that point, Nick started to feel more confident. I mean, we'd already proved it. We knew they could build the garments, but sort of felt more confident in being able to outwardly talk about it as well a little bit.
So we're 30 years on. You've celebrated your 30th birthday, Paramo has.
Yep.
And Nick decided that it was time to step back, and so it's an employee ownership trust.
That's right. Yes. Yep.
So how initially, I suppose, was that received by the staff in the UK?
So yeah, Nick's been working out what to do for quite some time. As I sort of alluded to, the biggest thing for Nick was he spent 45 years running Knitwax and Paramo. He considered a lot of options, management buyouts, selling the businesses, but didn't really feel that any of those were the right way to protect the values of the business. And so then someone mentioned to him this employee ownership, and it seemed to make a lot of sense. It was about then the employees taking the business forwards with their own interests, I suppose. Seemed like the best way of preserving this. So on the 1st of February this year, we completed that. And it's a learning phase. We've got 150 women in Colombia who became part of the Paramo group in January. Therefore, in February, those 150 women, all of Paramo, all of Knitwax, all of our shared staff, so sort of IT, HR and all of that. Knitwax North America, we've got a Knitwax European branch as well, so they're all part of this EOT now. And each one of these areas has a number of elected people who sit on the advisory council, depending on the size, and they are able to. They have sort of sit-down dialogues with the directors, and one of the things that I think all of the partners are quite excited about is actually the development that they can get out of this. So it means that someone who's working on the shop floor, if they're interested, we can teach them about a P&L, about a cash flow, about the difference between the two, which means that actually they're developing their knowledge, they're developing their business understanding. We've always been very transparent to all staff with facts and figures, but it means they can actively learn from everybody else.
So I suppose the thing that I didn't pick up on, rightly or wrongly actually, was the staff in Colombia. They're now involved, as you mentioned a second ago, and for them that must have been a big investment in them, and I mean, how did they feel about that?
Absolutely. So yeah, in January we took over the management of the Miquelina factory. The nuns over in Colombia have always struggled running a social enterprise alongside a commercial enterprise. So quite rightly, their focus has always been on the social. They want to help as many women as they possibly can. They need the factory working to be able to help those women. For the factory to work, Paramo needs to be making and selling coats. So there's a massive interdependency between those three things. And I think over the years they've struggled to sort of separate that commercial aspect and that social aspect. And when I was over there, the more you understand about how these things work, the more you realise the totally different energies required. You know, going undercover as a nun on the streets of Bogota is very different to running a factory making garments. So I think they were very grateful that there was a way to ensure that the foundation, so the nuns could carry on doing that social work, and that we would guarantee that there's still the factory where the women can come to, can learn those skills in a real world situation. So when we took that over, I went over to see them all, and there was genuine excitement about all of this. You know, one of the things that we did was actually, it's quite common in Bogota to just run on yearly contracts. It's just how things work over there. We turned around to all of the women and went, well, you're now on a full-time contract if you want it, you know, forever until you decide to leave, which is kind of unheard of, but gives them a massive amount of security over there. And they have an elected number of people as well, so they're going to start to have more interaction with the UK companies at a lower level. You know, there's 150 of them. There's I think we've got 8 administration staff, so and a team sort of 8 management over there, and then the rest of them are on the production floor. They're on the cutting, they're on quality, they're on laundry sort of thing. So for them to start to get an insight into businesses, and you know, we're talking about sort of giving them English lessons again, which is a transferable skill for them. They can take on. I think really starts to excite and open up what's possible over there as well.
No, it's really interesting to hear, and must be satisfying or kind of self-satisfying. I know that's not what you're doing it for, but to see that change and the excitement and the prospects now for a lot of the people there.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely, and it's quite humbling as well. You go over there.
Yes, I bet. So humbling is probably a better word than self-satisfying.
No, I knew it.
Yeah. So now you've gone through it. It's been communicated out. I think a lot of people heard about it. I would like to think. So what happens next? What's the next part of the story? So
we develop that, I suppose. You know, we're going through a transition phase ourselves as to finding that sort of balance as to how the employee trustees and the directors can work together for each other's benefit as well, and how we can learn off each other. And you know, the employees should have a bigger voice and all of this. But at the same point, we're not running the company. You know, there's not 1,000 voices running the company. There will still be direction. You know, I will still produce a business plan for Paramo, for example, and then I'll take that to the advisory council and go, this is what I think, this is the reason why. They get an option to feed into that. But I don't think you can have 10 different people going, well, this is what we want to do, because you'll just dilute anything and you won't achieve anything.
Business still needs direction, regardless of whether it's an employee
yeah.
ownership trust or
Yeah.
not. But and where do you see that next 5-year plan? What are the goals, or the overarching goals? I suppose it's a bit too specific to.
Yeah. So the big thing for me is once the industry manages to get some level of production working, hopefully we'll be able to fulfil our demand. But I'm very keen to drive Paramo forwards towards a circular economy. So the garments, again, Nick made a very visionary decision 30 years ago to make the garments from one material. He saw end of life of product as a problem back then. If they're made from one material, they will always be easier to recycle. We've sort of relaunched our recycling scheme this year. It's been going on for about 10 years now, but we're just giving it a bit of a refresh, I suppose. So some of the garments we take off people, we recondition and we sell on. But others that are not viable to repair, we're actually working with a development partner to chemically recycle those back into polyester chip. And we've done that, and we've put 3.5 tons through this in development runs, and they've got obviously other sources coming in. So there's PET chip available. They need much more fabric, much more garments coming in to commercialise this. We need more people buying the chip to drive down the price. At the moment, it's 30 times more expensive than recycled chip, which was already 20% more expensive. So need other brands to sort of get on board with this.
Some collaboration within the industry to make this kind of viable and push forward in conservation. And I think that's one of the main stories from the trade show is that the sustainability and how we do that better. But I think you're right. I think we need to join that up a bit more.
Yeah, we do all need to work together.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I just wanted to talk to you about the changes and the developments, and especially Miquelina. I think that's a great story. But thanks for sitting down with us, and we look forward to see what Paramo does in the next 30 years.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for having me.
No problem at all. Have a good.
Cheers.